Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones, back here today after what was an interesting week for Purdue basketball. It certainly was not the week I was expecting when we devoted last week's show entirely to football. I figured we could really talk about Purdue's Big Ten run a little bit more here today, but that's not the way it played out. Certainly an interesting week with a pair of results that have Purdue fans talking. So what are we going to do? We're going to talk about it all here today, as well as a few football topics at the end that also have folks talking. Before we get going here, follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. We are there all the time talking Purdue sports and plenty of other little college sports nuggets in general. Come join the conversation. Follow it on Twitter. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to have plenty to talk about this basketball season, even though some may think the sky is not falling on this team. There's going to be more basketball to talk about, more high-intensity, high-leverage basketball to talk about. So you'll want to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes from here on out. And if you didn't listen last week, we spent the whole episode kind of recapping Purdue's excellent football season, and that's worth a listen, in my opinion at least. Optimism for next season should be very high. I think this year's team is worth kind of reflecting on and appreciating what they did. So check out that episode if you haven't yet. All right, hopping into today. It is Sunday evening as I record this. The Bears hopefully just played their last game under Matt Nagy, so I'm in an all-right mood. This wasn't the week Purdue was hoping for by any means. On Monday, you kind of get back into the Big Ten groove with a home game at Mackey Arena that you drop 74-69 against Wisconsin. Johnny Davis erupts, probably the number one breakout player in America this year, and it's not just Purdue that he's done this to a degree. He hasn't had 37 points and 14 rebounds on everyone, but he's been excellent this year, and he torched Purdue. He made Purdue look bad and completely cost Purdue a game that they should have won. And then Purdue bounces back well. They go up to Happy Valley, take on Penn State, noon tip-off on a Saturday. It's a sleepy environment. They get the win 74-67. Kind of funny how these two games, as I'm looking at it, were almost the same score, just 2 points in difference. But Purdue gets a win that they really needed. And when I look at this week, I think it comes down to this. You know, I tweeted Saturday after the Penn State game that there's no such thing as a bad road win in the Big Ten. And I stand by that. You know, anytime you can go on the road and get a win, especially, you know, sometimes against some of the lower ranked teams in the league, teams that are lower in the standings, at a time that's not always prime, like a noon tip-off on BTN on a Saturday, that's a good win. Penn State's not a bad team. It was interesting to hear Micah Shrewsberry talk about that in his post-game press conference. He really talked about how Penn State's not a bad team, and he's right. He's absolutely right. You know, they weren't a bad team. They put pressure on Purdue throughout the game. You saw them late knock down a bunch of threes in a row to keep themselves in it and make Purdue continue to hit them with big shot after big shot. And Purdue did. Credit to Purdue there. They did not, you know, they weren't guaranteed a coast at the end of the game because Penn State hit, 8 straight shots. Jalen Pickett is excellent. Miles Dredd, Seth Lundy, Greg Lee, you know, these are good players. John Hara was excellent for them. He did a great job getting Zach Edey uncomfortable. So Purdue survives in that one, but also, while there is no bad road win, with a team as talented and with the ability that Purdue has, there is no such thing as a good home loss. That loss to Wisconsin really hurts. I know home games are not the same over Christmas break without the paint crew there, but nonetheless, that's not an excuse. Purdue flat out was outworked in that game. They were out-hustled, and they didn't deserve to win. Purdue had a lead in the second half. They couldn't hold on to it. Maybe that was a reality check for them. I think now you're out of reality checks. You probably were after that trip out east with the Rutgers loss and the NC State overtime win. That was probably it in terms of reality checks. This Wisconsin one may be a final one, but Purdue needs to be awake at this point. I don't know where they'll be in the AP poll. As I said, we're recording this Sunday evening, so by the time you're listening to this, you may know where Purdue is. I'm going to guess in that 6 to 10 range. A lot of other teams lost this weekend, so I don't think Purdue will fall too far. I don't think Purdue will fall as far as some fans think Purdue is falling. Certainly the mood around the fan base has changed quite a bit in the last month. Where Purdue is right now is interesting because you had such a good month of November, and that leaked into December. I don't remember when that Florida State game technically was, but you came out great, and I think a lot of that can be attributed to the continuity. Purdue didn't lose anyone significant from last year's team. Sorry, Aaron Wheeler. Purdue added one piece that's playing this year. Caleb First, Kaufman-Wren, Waddell redshirting. So the continuity helps Purdue early on, but I think part of that is a double-edged sword because especially when you get into Big Ten play, that continuity, remember, in the Big Ten, these teams play each other twice a year for the most part. Matt Painter's been at it for 17 years now, I think, 16, 17. You kind of run the same stuff every year. He always talks about Michigan State. You know exactly what they're going to run. You just have to stop it. And when you have that same personnel 2 years in a row, it's always a chess match during a season. Teams adjust to you, and you have to adjust back. Well, Purdue's in their second season with the same group of players in that chess match of adjustments and adjusting back. I think maybe teams have found something early on here in the year. We've talked about it on the show. They're pressuring the you-know-what out of Purdue. They're pressuring the ball. They're making Purdue's guards be good with the ball. And that's hurt Purdue at times. Certainly didn't help Purdue against Wisconsin. Now, Purdue's adjusting back. It'll happen. I guarantee you that. You are a little bit behind the 8 ball in the Big Ten race, though, because home losses really hurt. You're going to lose some games on the road usually. Purdue's already lost one there, but you're going to lose more. Purdue's not going to run the table from here on out. Right now, as you look at it, it's Illinois' conference to lose. Purdue does get them twice. We'll talk about that matchup coming up on Monday later in this episode. But you almost get the feeling that Purdue's going to need to sweep Illinois if they want to win the Big Ten regular season title, because the Illini are a tough matchup. They really are. I think right now they're playing like the best team in the Big Ten. I don't know that they are, but that's reality right now on January 9th. A Big Ten championship should be the goal. I know when the season started, the talk was about the NCAA tournament. The talk was 1 seed. The talk was Final Four. But when you're in the regular season, you just kind of have to focus on the regular season. And a Big Ten championship should be the goal. This team is too good to not have something in Mackey Arena to remember it, and Purdue only puts up banners for Big Ten championships and Final Fours, or obviously championship appearances. But you want to have something to remember this team by. I still think they're going to get there. I think maybe the Big Ten tournament is where they do something, but, right now, there are some questions still. And the biggest one that has certainly gotten the most publicity, because there is no fan base that talks about its rotational players off the bench more than Purdue fans do. I don't say that as a bad thing. I think it certainly is a sign that, some folks are pretty basketball savvy because you understand the rotations and you're not just talking about the best players. But Matt Painter has said a number of times this year, especially early on, he hasn't said it much late because it's been in the process of happening, but he's kind of said, I can play 9, it's really hard to play 10. And he's referring to the number of players in his rotation. We saw that on Saturday for the first time, where Brandon Newman was a did not play coach's decision in the Penn State game. Only had 6 minutes against Wisconsin as well. So if that rotation is being whittled down to 9, we have seen who is going to be cut out. It's been a tough season on Newman, without a doubt. I don't think this is the season that he had in mind. I don't think this is the season that coaches or fans had in mind. He had a really nice redshirt freshman year and struggled towards the end of the year when he was moved out of the starting lineup. That was kind of a no-brainer decision because Jaden Ivey and Sasha Stefanovic are your 2 best guards. You have to have them in the lineup, and neither of them are a point guard. So last year, Eric Hunter started. This year, Isaiah Thompson's starting. Newman just has never regained what he had last year when he had 29 points against Minnesota. This year, he's shooting just 25% from 2-point range, 33% from 3. And, there was a stretch in December when Painter pretty much came out and said that Newman wasn't taking good shots, that he was forcing things a bit. Really, it was evident in the Rutgers game, a little bit in the NC State game too, that shots were being taken that just aren't of the quality that he wanted. And at one point recently, Newman was taking more shots per 40 minutes than any other guard on the team. More than Jaden Ivey and more than Sasha Stefanovic. That's a problem. Those are your 2 best guards. They should be taking the bulk of your shots. So that's kind of proof of what Matt Painter was talking about there. He's not done yet. We've seen way too many instances of players who seemingly are barely in the rotation getting a chance again. The John Hart game against Illinois back in 2011 will always kind of be the gold standard of that in Purdue basketball lore. But Newman's got to stay the course here. I know it's not easy. I know that when a player is used to playing, it's really hard to sit there for 40 minutes and not play at all. So, credit to him if he's still coming to practice every day, working hard. But unfortunately, the areas of deficiency for him have been kind of highlighted this year, and that's moved him towards the bottom of the rotation. We'll talk about this a little bit more too. For the life of me, I can't figure out why Travion Williams is so much more effective off the bench. Saw it again this week. Really struggled against Wisconsin. Did not have a great game, and then comes off the bench against Penn State, has 21 points, 9 boards, kind of helps you win the game down the stretch. I don't get it. And Zach Edey's kind of the same way. He kind of plays better off the bench as well. Someone has to start. I don't necessarily care who starts, but someone has to do it. Caleb First had to play the 5 at times against Penn State, and did a fine job there. I don't know what all was going on when he missed the Nichols game because of COVID protocol. I don't know if he had COVID, if he was a contact tracing guy. I don't really know what they're doing now. Quite honestly, I don't really care what they're doing now, but it was good to see him. He only got 6 minutes against Wisconsin. Purdue needed him in some serious stretches against Penn State, and he played well. The stretch where Penn State cut that game back, I think they got it to 2 before Travion Williams came back in, wasn't necessarily on Caleb first. And it was interesting to hear Matt Painter talk about how Purdue doesn't really practice without either Williams or Edey on the floor. So this is Purdue kind of going in with stuff they don't practice. Credit to First, he did a nice job. And if you're Purdue, you really hope that you can avoid those situations, because those fouls on Williams and Edey, incredibly preventable. Edey's just got to have better awareness. John Hara really baited him into a couple that maybe a little more ticky-tack fouls, but they were fouls. Williams just keeps reaching. That's been an issue for a few years now. It's probably going to continue to be an issue. Just putting his hands out there, and sometimes he makes great plays. Sometimes those turn into steals. Other times they turn into fouls that are really costly. One thing we saw was how important Jaden Ivey is on both sides of the floor. Obviously, with the ball in his hands, he's dynamic. Purdue's offense relies on him a ton. We saw it early against Wisconsin when he picked up his second foul on a play where Brad Davison got him. Brad Davison knew exactly what Ivey was going to do. Ivey tried to make a jump pass instead of a jump stop and pass and got him on a charge. Ivey missed most of that first half, and Purdue's offense really struggled. I think they only scored 24 points. We saw also how important he can be on defense, because at the end of that Penn State game, he locked in. He had a great steal late. I think that was on Lundy. That led to Purdue kind of sealing the deal. That play almost was the icing on the cake. Matt Painter really tried to subtweet Ivey a little bit when he was talking in the media this week. He kept saying Johnny Davis is a two-way player, talking about how effective Johnny Davis is from Wisconsin on both sides of the floor. That is a direct reference to Jaden Ivey not being great on the defensive end in that Wisconsin game. He was better against Penn State. He has all the tools to be an elite defender. It's just about getting there. And while he's had some pick sixes this year that look great, there's more to defense than that. And especially when it comes to off-ball defense, when the ball is on the other side of the half court. A lot of that can be improved on, but you just saw how effective he is with the ball in his hands. Made some excellent plays against Penn State late. Went to the basket for a big bucket late. Knocked down a three at one point that really helped. So he's crucial. The point guard play, and we've had some questions on Twitter about this, and this is the argument. For those of you that sit on the message boards like I do, you've seen this. There's a lot of frustration with Purdue's point guard play among fans between Isaiah Thompson and Eric Hunter Jr. I'll say this. It needs to be a little bit better. At least it can be better. I think, Purdue can do all right with these guys. It's worth pointing out, Isaiah Thompson's a 50% three-point shooter. He hit a massive three off of an offensive rebound that he got towards the end of that Penn State game. Shoots 50% from three. That's pretty difficult to do. He doesn't turn the ball over. I think he's turned it over 7 times this year, and one of those was that kicked ball at the end of the first half against Wisconsin. And Eric Hunter Jr. is your best on-ball defender. He was really good late against Penn State, against Jalen Pickett. Pickett hit a couple shots that were really, really tough that you just kind of live with. Hunter was really good on defense in that game. And while the offense hasn't clicked for him this year, he knows where the ball needs to be. He doesn't try to do too much for the most part. Took an ill-advised shot against Wisconsin late, but, look, there's always going to be something that is worth complaining about. Folks have talked about letting Ivy run the point. Well, you can do that. I think maybe even in the NBA, I can't say that I watch the NBA, so I have no idea what Jaden Ivey will be in the NBA. But he could be a point guard there. But I don't know that that's is effective for this team. I mean, Thompson grades out as a really good defender based on advanced metrics. I know folks like to knock his defense because he's short, but he's not bad on defense. And Eric Hunter, as I said, I think he's still your best perimeter defender. That's a loss if you don't have either of those guys on the floor. Initiating this motion offense is important, but keep in mind that, half the time the ball is in Jaden Ivey's hands. He's not necessarily, he's not used like Sasha Stefanovic, who is constantly running off screens and all that stuff. The ball's in Ivey's hands a lot. And if you're expecting this to turn into more of a high ball screen offense, that's just not really how this is going to work. That's not how Matt Painter wants to run things, and that's not really how this roster is constructed either. This isn't some, high ball screen clear out offense. It's just not how Big Ten basketball really works at all. Brandon Newman can't play point guard. His ball handling just isn't good enough to put the ball in his hands as a point guard, so that's out of the picture. That's part of why he's not playing, because Ethan Morton can handle the ball. From what I understand, he hasn't really worked much at the point guard spot in practice, so that's why he's playing more of an off-ball guard role. Maybe you'll see some of him at the point this year, but I don't think Purdue's problems at point guard are quite as bad as folks seem to make it out to be right now, but you would like to see more scoring production from Thompson and Hunter combined. But, a lot of times too, it's not that these guys are being asked to do a whole lot. And you have Jaden Ivey, you have the big men. Someone's just got to be out there as well. You're not going to have some other alpha at point guard if Ivey's at shooting guard and you have the big men. You've got what you need there. And speaking of alphas, Mason Gillis, my goodness, understated as can be, but how hard does he work out there? The offensive rebound where he got fouled at the end of the first half against Penn State, fantastic. He kept Purdue in it against Wisconsin in the first half. Hit a huge three late to extend Purdue's lead from 1 to 4 at Penn State. The guy's been awesome. He has been money at the free throw line. He's been money from the 3-point line. He's incredible. I'm really interested, and it doesn't matter for this year, but to see what next year's role looks like for him, because this team's going to take a significant step back next year. I think he could be a guy who turns into a really big player for Purdue next year in terms of usage. So what lies ahead? Tuesday at Michigan has been postponed. As you've probably seen, Michigan has COVID in their program. They had to cancel or postpone their game Saturday against Michigan State. Now the game against Purdue's postponed. Kind of a bummer, I guess, if this gets made up, because Michigan is really struggling right now. You would have liked to get them before those freshmen get more experience. They have plenty of talent, but they haven't put it together well. Now you have some time off. Friday against Nebraska at 6:30 is your next game. That's at Mackey Arena. The Huskers are not very good. 0-5 in Big Ten play. I did not realize until talking to one of you on Twitter that Hoiberg makes more money than Matt Painter does. That's pretty remarkable. They're terrible. They got run off the floor at the rack yesterday. They did give Ohio State a bit of a scare, but that was with Ohio State coming off their long COVID pause. Not a very good Nebraska team. You would love to see Purdue walk out on Mackey Arena's floor and just throttle them, win a game by 20, 25 points. I don't know what that line will be, but I'd guess it'll be above 15. Purdue's got to just come out and take care of business there. Don't let them linger, because on Monday, you have what is your biggest game of the season so far. Martin Luther King Day, noon Eastern tip-off against Illinois. Yeah, that's a Monday, noon Eastern. Fox did this last year a little bit as well with the holiday, doing it again this year. As I said in the start, Illinois is the favorite to win the Big Ten right now. If you can go in there and you can take down Illinois, that is season-changing. They've been excellent. They're better without Andre Curbelo. Because right now, what they bring to the table is Kofi Cockburn in the middle with four guys who can launch threes around him. To some extent, they remind you a bit, especially in terms of construction, of the 2017-18 Purdue team, when you had Isaac Haas in the middle, Vince Edwards, Carson Edwards, Dakota Mathias, P.J. Thompson, Ryan Klein around him. And that was a pretty good team. That's an effective strategy in the Big Ten. That's going to be a difficult game. Purdue's perimeter defense is going to be really tested there. Purdue tends to give up more open threes off of rotations than they need to. Illinois will torch Purdue if they're giving up a lot of open threes. Kofi Cockburn's been really good against Purdue. I don't know that Purdue's beaten him. Maybe they have, but I can't remember at this point. But it's been a while since Purdue beat Illinois. The last two seasons, Purdue has not beaten Illinois. This would be a monumental win. That would be a win that makes you feel, if you don't right now, if you don't think this team's a national title contender right now, that win, the potential of winning that game, would get a lot of people back on board on Purdue. So a big week, nonetheless. I will be doing the next episode after that Illinois game, so stay tuned until then. Wanted to close out here. Losing football coaches is never ideal. That is the reality of the world of college football right now. Purdue had a great year. It looks as if, well, it's official that Brad Lambert is heading to Wake Forest. He spent 10 years there earlier in his career. It is not all that surprising that he's headed back. I know that his family never left the Charlotte area, and, well, quite honestly, it just makes sense. You can't really blame a guy for wanting to go be closer to family. So Purdue has that spot open up now, that linebackers coach and defensive coordinator spot. Will they, the questions now are, who do they go after as linebacker coach, and who is the defensive coordinator? Because, every coach kind of has a position with them. If you go out and hire a new play caller on defense, he'll be a linebacker guy. I don't know. I haven't really looked at who that would be. I know there is some talk that they would keep it internal and promote Ron English, the defensive backs coach, to be the play caller and the main defensive coordinator, and then do something at linebacker coach. We'll see where they go. I'm not positive what they'll do there. They have plenty of time to let things play out. And then there are rumors. It's 5:38 on Sunday. I haven't seen anything official yet regarding Jamarcus Shepard. Wide receivers coach. Talk that Notre Dame is interested. There was a report out this morning that he would be taking the Washington wide receiver coach job. That report misspelled Jamarcus Shepard's last name, so take that with a grain of salt, I guess. If he may go to Washington, but I tend to not trust a source that misspells the name of a coach that they are breaking as, news. So I don't know if he'll be back. If Notre Dame comes calling, he'll be gone, no doubt. He's a Northern Indiana guy. He's from Fort Wayne, so it would make sense for him to go to South Bend. I think he would have more control with the offense somewhere else, too. Purdue's very hands-on with the Brohms with that offense. If he were to go somewhere else, maybe he can be groomed a little bit better to make a jump as an offensive coordinator. But, regardless, this stuff just kind of happens. This is not an indictment on Purdue. This is not an indictment on Jeff Brohm. This is just the reality of where college football is here in 2022. It is cutthroat on both sides. Schools are cutthroat, and coaches are always jumping for bigger things. And it's simply just self-interest. You can't blame these guys whatsoever. That's all we've got today. Thank you for spending some time with me. Be sure, follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. Plenty of stuff there. Join the conversation and subscribe to Boilers and Beyond wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back here next week to talk about Purdue, Nebraska, talk about Purdue, Illinois, and maybe there's going to be more football news. Who knows? But we will break down whatever we have to break down here next week. Until next time, have a great week, everybody.